Asterisk the last diplomat. The holographic display flickered in the darkened chamber of the United Earth Coalition headquarters, casting blue shadows across Ambassador Dr. Elena Vasquez's weathered face. She had spent 43 hours preparing this transmission humanity's final peace proposal. Her hands trembled slightly as she activated the quantum-entangled communicator, knowing that the response would arrive in mere seconds. Despite the vast distance between Earth and the Crithian Empire's flagship, this is Ambassador Elena Vasquez of the United Earth Coalition. Transmitting on all diplomatic channels, she began, her voice steady despite the exhaustion etched into every syllable. We acknowledge the tragic destruction of the Monument of Eternal Ascension. We have offered reparations, cultural exchanges, and a joint investigation. We ask again, let us resolve this through dialogue, not devastation. The chamber fell silent. President Amara Okafor stood behind the observation glass, her dark eyes fixed on Elena's back. Beside her, General Zhang Wei checked his tactical display for the 100th time. The Crithian armada had been detected at the edge of the Oort cloud, moving steadily toward the inner solar system. The holographic display erupted with light. The image that materialized made Elena's breath catch High Chancellor Vraxther of the Crithian Empire, his crystalline exoskeleton gleaming like fractured diamonds, his 6 eyes burning with what could only be described as contempt. Ambassador Vasquez, the Chancellor's voice resonated through the translation matrix, each word dripping with disdain. Your species has the audacity to speak of dialogue after defiling our most sacred site? You are insects pretending to be gods, children playing with technology you barely comprehend. Elena's jaw tightened, but she maintained her composure. High Chancellor, the destruction was accidental. Our mining operation had no knowledge. Ignorance is not innocence. Vraxther's voice thundered through the chamber. For 6,000 cycles, the Crithian Empire has maintained order in this sector. Species rise and fall by our decree. And now you, barely a century into space travel, dare to spread across worlds as if the cosmos belongs to you? The cosmos belongs to no one, Elena replied firmly. Or it belongs to everyone. We seek coexistence, not domination. The Chancellor's laugh was like breaking glass. Coexistence? You have exactly 72 of your Earth hours to comply with our terms. Evacuate your 12 colony worlds. Dismantle every military vessel. Submit your entire population to cultural re-education under Crithian supervision. These are not negotiations, Ambassador. This is mercy. The transmission cut out abruptly, leaving Elena staring at the empty holographic space. The silence in the chamber was deafening. President Okafor entered the room, her footsteps echoing on the polished floor. Elena, you did everything you could. It wasn't enough, Elena whispered, her shoulders sagging. 6 months. 6 months of trying to make them understand that what happened at that monument was a tragic accident, not an act of war. 6 months earlier, Europa Mining Station 7, the memory played in Elena's mind with crystal clarity. She had watched the security footage 1,000 times, each viewing more painful than the last. Captain Rebecca Torres had been a 20-year veteran of deep space mining operations. Her crew had been scanning Europa's subsurface ocean for rare earth elements when their drilling laser struck something unexpected. A crystalline structure buried 3 kilometers beneath the ice. The structure had been invisible to their initial scans, its technology so advanced it appeared as natural ice formations. The drilling laser had triggered a cascade reaction. The crystalline monument, a Crithian religious site, commemorating their species' first ascension to spacefaring status, had shattered in a brilliant explosion of light. The monument had been there for 6,000 years, hidden and forgotten even by the Crithians themselves, until human ambition had destroyed it in 37 seconds. Captain, Torres and her entire crew of 43 miners had died in the explosion. The Krithian response had been immediate and merciless. They had vaporized Europa Mining Station 7 and every human vessel within 10 light years of the incident site. 3,218 souls lost in the opening salvo of a war nobody wanted. Elena shook herself from the memory. Madam President, we need to convene the council immediately. They're already gathering, Okafor replied. But Elena, you know how divided they are. Half want to surrender. The other half want to fight a war we cannot win. We have to try to convince them that there's another way. Is there? Okafor's question hung in the air like a guillotine blade. The Earth Coalition Council Chamber was a circular room designed to represent unity representatives from every nation, every continent, every major human settlement across the solar system. Tonight, that unity was fracturing before Elena's eyes. We must surrender. Chancellor Yuki Tanaka of the Pacific Alliance slammed his fist on the table. The Krithian Empire controls 47 star systems. Their technology is centuries ahead of ours. Resistance is suicide. Surrender is slavery, countered Director Emahal Kumalo of the African Federation. They're not asking us to retreat. They're demanding we dismantle everything we've built, submit to their cultural re-education. Do you understand what that means? They want to erase what makes us human. They want us alive, Tanaka shot back. Fight them, and they'll exterminate us down to the last child. The chamber erupted in shouting. Elena watched, her heart sinking. This was exactly what the Krithians wanted, humanity tearing itself apart from within. President Okafor raised her hand, and gradually the chamber quieted. Ambassador Vasquez, you've spent more time interfacing with the Krithian diplomatic corps than anyone. What is your recommendation? Elena stood slowly, feeling the weight of humanity's future pressing down on her shoulders. She had rehearsed this speech a dozen times, but now that the moment had arrived, she found herself speaking from the heart instead. 6 months ago, 43 miners died doing what humans have always done, pushing forward, exploring, building, striving for more. Their deaths were not in vain, and they were not murderers. They were pioneers who encountered a tragedy they couldn't have predicted. She paused, meeting the eyes of every council member in turn. The Krithian Empire sees us as children because we're young. They see us as reckless because we're bold. They see us as inferior because we don't have 6,000 years of history behind us. But I've studied their culture, their history, their philosophy, and I've learned something crucial. They respect strength, but they worship survival. What are you saying? Asked Chancellor Tanaka quietly. I'm saying that if we surrender, they will never see us as equals. We'll be subjects forever. Our children will forget what it means to be human. But if we stand and fight not to destroy them, but to prove we cannot be destroyed, then perhaps we can earn something more valuable than peace. What could be more valuable than peace? Someone called out. Respect, Elena answered simply. The respect that leads to genuine coexistence, not subjugation dressed in diplomatic language. The chamber fell silent. Finally, General Zhang Wei stood from his position in the military section. The general was a compact man in his 60s, his hair steel gray, his eyes sharp as laser cutters. Asterisk. If I may, council members, he began, his voice carrying the weight of authority. Ambassador Vasquez is correct. I've been analyzing Krithian military tactics for 6 months. They're powerful, yes. Technologically superior, absolutely. But they have one critical weakness. Every eye in the chamber turned to him. They're overconfident. They believe their own propaganda about human inferiority. And that, council members, is something we can use. President Okafor leaned forward. General, are you saying we have a chance? Madam President, I'm saying we have more than a chance. I'm saying we have a plan. Zhang Wei activated his wrist display, and a holographic schematic materialized above the council table. For the past 18 months, since the moment first contact went sideways, I've been running a black-budget project. Something we called Project Terminus. The hologram showed the solar system, but overlaid with thousands of tactical markers, hidden weapons platforms, disguised military installations, entire fleets concealed in places the Krithians would never think to look. This is impossible, breathed Chancellor Tanaka. The budget alone was authorized by a secret executive order, Okafor interrupted. General Zhang came to me 20 months ago with a worst-case scenario plan. I signed it using discretionary defense funds. Only 5 people in this room knew about it. Elena stared at the display, her mind reeling. Humanity hadn't been sitting idle. They'd been preparing for war while simultaneously pursuing peace. We have weaponized asteroids equipped with relativistic drives. Zhang Wei explained, highlighting clusters of markers throughout the asteroid belt. To any scanner, they look like ordinary mining operations. We have 3 complete battle fleets hiding in the radiation shadow of Jupiter, using the planet's magnetic field to mask their signatures. We have fold space disruptor satellites technology. We developed specifically to counter Krithian faster-than-light tactics, positioned at every major gravity well in the system. But can we win? Asked Director Kumalo, her voice barely a whisper. Win? Perhaps not in the traditional sense, Zhang admitted. But we can make the cost of conquering humanity so devastating that the Krithian Empire will be forced to negotiate a genuine peace. We can prove that we're not children to be disciplined. We're a species to be reckoned with. The debate that followed lasted 7 hours. Voices were raised, fists were pounded, tears were shed. But gradually, steadily, a consensus emerged. Not unanimity. There would always be those who believed surrender was the only moral choice, but a clear majority. When the vote was called, the result was decisive, 73% in favor of resistance. President Okafor stood, her voice ringing out across the chamber. Then it's decided. Ambassador Vasquez, you will send one final transmission to the Krithian Empire. Not a plea, not a surrender, a statement of who we are and what we stand for. Elena nodded, feeling a strange calm settle over her. The choice had been made. Now came the hardest part, living with the consequences. 12 hours later, Elena stood once again before the holographic communicator. Behind the observation glass, the entire Earth Coalition Council had gathered to witness this moment. General Zhang Wei had his hand hovering over the activation switch for Project Terminus. President Okafor stood with her head held high, ready to lead humanity into either its finest hour or its final chapter. Elena took a deep breath and began the transmission that would echo across the stars. High Chancellor Vraxther, this is Ambassador Elena Vasquez, speaking on behalf of all humanity. We have considered your ultimatum with the gravity it deserves. We have debated, argued, and soul-searched, and we have reached our decision. She paused, letting the weight of the moment build. We will not evacuate our colonies. We will not dismantle our fleets. We will not submit to cultural re-education. We are not your subjects, and we are not your children. We are humanity flawed, young, and occasionally reckless, yes. But we are also strong, creative, and utterly unwilling to surrender our freedom. Her voice grew stronger, filled with iron resolve. 6 months ago, a terrible accident claimed thousands of lives on both sides. We mourned those losses deeply. We offered reparations, dialogue, and justice. You offered only domination. We offered peace. You chose war. So hear this, High Chancellor, and hear it well. If you come to our home seeking to make us kneel, you will discover what happens when humanity is pushed to its final stand. Elena leaned forward, her eyes burning with defiant fire. We offered peace. You rejected it. Now face humanity's true power. We are not the insects you believe us to be. We are the species that refused to stay in the caves. We are the children who looked at the impossible and said, "Watch me. We are humanity. And we will never, ever surrender." She cut the transmission. For 5 seconds, the chamber was absolutely silent. Then President Okafor began to applaud. One by one, every person in the room joined in, the sound building to a thunderous crescendo. General Zhang Wei activated his comm system. All Project Terminus units. This is command. Status: Amber. Prepare for hostile contact. This is not a drill. Across the solar system, thousands of hidden weapons platforms came online. 3 complete battle fleets emerged from their hiding places. Fold disruptor satellites began charging their exotic matter cores. Humanity's trap was set. Elena stared at the blank holographic space where Vraxthur's image had been. In 72 hours, the Crithian armada would arrive. In 72 hours, humanity would discover if courage and clever tactics could overcome raw technological superiority. "May we all forgive ourselves for what comes next," she whispered. Outside the windows of the Coalition headquarters, Earth continued its eternal spin, blue and green, and achingly beautiful, a world worth fighting for, a home worth defending, a species worth believing in. The countdown had begun. Asterisk, when terror roars, the Crithian armada emerged from fold space like a swarm of crystalline locusts, their 5,000 warships materializing at the edge of the Sol system in perfect geometric formation. High Chancellor Vraxthur stood on the command deck of the flagship Eternal Ascension, named in bitter memory of the monument these primitive humans had destroyed. His 6 eyes gleamed with anticipation as tactical displays showed the pathetically sparse human defenses. "Scan results, Tactical Coordinator," he commanded, his voice resonating through the crystalline architecture of the bridge. "As expected." "High Chancellor," replied Coordinator Thynek, manipulating holographic displays with 4 of her 8 appendages. "We detect approximately 200 human vessels scattered throughout the inner system. Primitive kinetic weapons. Outdated fusion drives. Their fold space technology is laughably inefficient, at least 3 generations behind our own. Vraxthur's mandibles clicked together in what passed for a Crithian smile. And their planetary defenses? Minimal. Some orbital platforms around Earth itself. A few weapons satellites around Mars and the gas giants. Nothing that could threaten even a single battle group." Thynek paused, her sensors flickering. "High Chancellor, they're transmitting on all frequencies." "Put it through." The holographic display materialized, showing Ambassador Vasquez once more. But this time, she wasn't alone. President Okafor stood beside her, and behind them, visible, through large windows, was Earth itself impossibly blue, swirling with white clouds, utterly fragile. "High Chancellor Vraxthur," Elena began, her voice steady but tinged with profound sadness. "You have 72 hours to withdraw from our system. This is your final warning. Leave now, and we can still find peace. Cross the orbit of Neptune, and we will interpret it as an act of war. The choice is yours." Vraxthur's laugh echoed across the bridge. Humans, so brave in the face of certain extinction. "Record my response." The holographic image shifted to show him. "Ambassador Vasquez, your warning is noted and dismissed. We will accept nothing less than total surrender. You have one final opportunity. Power down all weapons, deactivate all military vessels, and prepare to receive Crithian occupation forces. You have 6 of your hours to comply. After that, we will begin orbital bombardment of your colonies, starting with Mars, then Europa, then Earth itself." He gestured sharply, cutting the transmission. All battle groups advance to Mars orbit. Maximum intimidation formation. Let them see the futility of resistance. The Armada began its inexorable advance into the solar system. Earth Coalition. Defense Command Geneva. They're moving, General Zhang Wei announced, his eyes fixed on the massive tactical display that dominated the command center. All 5,000 ships advancing in standard Krithian intimidation formation, 6 battle groups in a hexagonal pattern. Flagship at the center. They're not even trying to be subtle. President Okafor stood beside him, her hands clasped behind her back. General, are we ready? As ready as we'll ever be, Madam President. Zhang Wei's voice was grim. But I want to be clear even with Project Terminus. Our victory is far from certain. We're banking on surprise, ingenuity, and the hope that they've underestimated us so badly they won't adapt in time. They've underestimated us, Elena said quietly, stepping up to join them. She had been monitoring the Krithian fleet's communications. Vraxthar is already planning his victory celebration. He's allocated ships for the occupation, designated. Governors for our colonies even selected which human cities will be preserved as cultural specimens. They think this is already over. Good, Zhang Wei said with a cold smile. Pride comes before the fall. All units, this is command. Status, red. I repeat, status red. Execute Project Terminus on my mark. Across the solar system, thousands of operators received the signal and placed their hands on activation switches, waiting for the final command. Zhang Wei watched the Krithian fleet cross the orbit of Neptune, exactly as predicted. In approximately 40 minutes, they'll reach the Mars, our primary engagement zone. That's where we spring the trap. 40 minutes to change the course of human history, Okafor murmured. No pressure. Despite the tension, Elena found herself smiling. We've come a long way from the caves, haven't we? That we have, Ambassador, Zhang Wei agreed, and we're not going back. Krithian flagship, approaching Mars orbit, High Chancellor. We're detecting unusual energy signatures near the asteroid belt, Coordinator Thynek reported, her sensor appendages twitching with concern. Vraxthar barely glanced at the readouts. Mining operations, no doubt. The humans are industrial, if nothing else. Maintain course. Sir, the energy signatures are increasing exponentially. I'm reading. Thynek's eyes widened in shock. High Chancellor, the asteroids are moving. On the tactical display, hundreds of points of light suddenly accelerated from the asteroid belt, moving at velocities that should have been impossible for objects of their mass. Evasive maneuvers. Vraxthar commanded, but the asteroids were already too close. Moving too fast. The first relativistic projectile struck the rightmost battle group with the force of a small nuclear weapon. The asteroid, a nickel iron rock the size of a small building, had been accelerated to 12%, the speed of light, by hidden fusion drives. When it hit the Krithian destroyer Vigilant Hunter, the kinetic energy released was apocalyptic. The destroyer simply ceased to exist, vaporized in a microsecond. The expanding plasma wave destroyed 3 more ships and crippled a dozen others. Shields up. All vessels, maximum defensive posture. Vraxthar shouted, but more asteroids were incoming. A precisely coordinated barrage from 100 different vectors. The Krithian energy shields flickered to life beautiful cascades of iridescent energy designed to deflect or absorb energy weapons. They were the pride of Krithian military technology, capable of withstanding sustained plasma, bombardment or particle beam attacks. They did absolutely nothing against multi-ton rocks moving at relativistic speeds. The asteroids punched through the shields as if they weren't there. Pure kinetic force overwhelming sophisticated energy fields. Physics didn't care about technological superiority. Mass times velocity equaled devastation. 12 more Krithian ships died in the opening salvo. Then 20. Then 47. How is this possible? Vraxthor demanded, his crystalline exoskeleton flickering with stress colors. Our intelligence said they had no weapons capable of. Because they're not weapons, High Chancellor. Thynek's voice was frantic as she manipulated her displays. They're mining equipment. The humans disguised weapons platforms as civilian mining operations. Every asteroid mining station in the belt has been converted into a railgun. The second wave of asteroids hammered into the Crithian formation, and this time the humans demonstrated tactical brilliance that made Vraxthor's blood run cold. The asteroids weren't aimed at individual ships. They were aimed at the spaces between ships, at the gravitational fields, at the precise points where Crithian vessels clustered for mutual defense. When the asteroids missed their primary targets, they fragmented, turning into clouds of high-velocity shrapnel that shredded armor and destroyed sensor arrays across multiple vessels. Fold space jump, Vraxthor commanded. All ships emergency fold to the outer system. High Chancellor, fold drives are. Thynek's sensor appendages spasmed. They're not responding. Something is interfering with the exotic matter matrices. At that moment, thousands of small satellites that had been disguised as space debris activated throughout the solar system. Project Lighthouse Humanity's Fold Space Disruptor Network came online, generating overlapping fields of gravitational interference that made faster-than-light travel impossible within the Sol system. The Crithian Armada was trapped. Phase 1 complete. General Zhang Wei announced, watching the tactical display with fierce satisfaction. Estimate 400 enemy vessels destroyed or disabled. They're disorganized and their fold drives are offline. Phase 2? President Okafor asked. Now we introduce them to our Navy. Zhang Wei transmitted a single coded signal. All fleets, you are weapons free. Show them what Earth's children can do. From the radiation shadow of Jupiter, where their electromagnetic signatures had been hidden by the gas giant's immense magnetic field, the first Earth battle fleet emerged. 50 capital ships, 200 destroyers, and countless support vessels humanity's hidden sword, from Mars' polar ice caps, where they had been buried beneath frozen CO2, the second fleet broke free, ice cascading from their hulls like warriors emerging from hibernation, from Saturn's rings, where they had been disguised as scientific research stations. The third fleet activated their drives and began acceleration toward the battlefield. 3 complete. Battle Fleet's humanity's answer to the question of what they had been doing for the past 18 months. Every ship was equipped with the latest human technology, magnetic acceleration mass drivers, plasma torpedoes, point defense lasers, and most importantly, fold disruptor-resistant armor designed specifically to operate within Lighthouse's interference fields. The Crithians had superior energy weapons and more elegant technology. But the humans had prepared, adapted, and learned from every encounter. More importantly, they were fighting for their home. Fighter Wing Delta, Captain James Okongwo. All fighters. Form up on my wing, Captain James Okongwo commanded, guiding his F-95 Wasp through the debris field that had once been pristine space. Target the Crithian flagship. If we can take down their command structure, they might break. James was 26 years old, the nephew of Ambassador Elena Vasquez. And like every fighter pilot in the Earth Defense Force, he had volunteered knowing he might not come home. His targeting computer locked onto the massive crystalline structure of the Eternal Ascension. Cap, that thing is huge, his wingman Lieutenant Sarah Chun breathed. Our missiles won't even scratch it. Then we get creative, James replied, checking his payload. Chun, you remember those mining charges we borrowed from the asteroid belt? The unauthorized ones that definitely aren't in our official loadout? Those exact ones. We're not going to shoot at their shields. We're going to mine their hull. The Wasp fighters dove toward the flagship. weaving through point defense fire with a combination of skill and reckless courage that made Krithian gunners curse in 3 languages. James's squadron deployed their mining charges-shaped nuclear devices designed to crack asteroids directly onto the Eternal Ascension's hull plating. The charges were too small, moving too slowly, and attached too closely for the Krithian point defense systems to track effectively. By the time the flagship's crew realized what was happening, James's squadron had planted 47 nuclear mining charges across the ship's superstructure. All units, clear blast radius. James commanded, pulling his fighter into a bone-crushing turn. Detonating in 3.2. The charges exploded simultaneously, and while they couldn't destroy the flagship, they did something almost as valuable. They blinded it. Sensor arrays, communication antennas, and weapons targeting systems across the port side of the vessel were vaporized, leaving the flagship deaf and partially disabled. "That's for my aunt," James whispered, "and for everyone who believed peace was worth trying. Krithian flagship chaos. We've lost portside sensors. Communications array is down. Weapons control is intermittent." The reports flooded Vraxter's command deck faster than he could process. The High Chancellor stared at the tactical display in growing horror. His magnificent armada was being dismantled by a species he had considered primitive. The humans weren't fighting with elegance or sophisticated technology. They were fighting with brutal effectiveness, turning every disadvantage into an advantage. Their ships were slower. They used gravity assists and ambush tactics. Their weapons were less powerful. They attacked in overwhelming numbers from multiple vectors. Their technology was outdated. They improvised, adapted, and weaponized things the Krithians had never considered weapons at all. "High Chancellor, we're receiving a transmission," Vanek reported. It's from Ambassador Vasquez." "Put it through," Vraxter commanded, his voice hollow. Alana's face appeared on the display. Behind her, through the windows of Earth Coalition Command, Vraxter could see Earth stinning, still blue, still defiant. "High Chancellor," Elena began, and her voice carried no triumph, only profound weariness. "You've lost 30% of your fleet. Your fold drives are disabled. Your flagship is crippled. You can continue this battle, and we will continue to fight until the last ship on either side is destroyed. Or—" She paused, and Vraxter saw something in her eyes that shocked him compassion. "Or we can end this now, not with surrender, but with negotiation between equals. You came here expecting to discipline children. But what you've encountered is a species that has survived ice ages, plagues, wars, and every disaster our world could throw at us. We are not children, High Chancellor. We are survivors. And survivors know when to fight, when to retreat, and when to extend a hand to a former enemy." Vraxter looked around his command deck. The crew members who had been so confident 12 hours ago now stared at him with uncertainty and fear. He thought of the thousands of Krithian lives already lost, of the families who would mourn them, of the empire that would question how this disaster had occurred. And he thought of the human crew members who had died in those 43 mining ships 6 months ago, of the Krithian priests who had tended the monument of eternal ascension for 6 millennia, of all the senseless death on both sides. What are your terms?" he asked quietly. Asterisk. "No terms," Elena replied. "No surrender, no subjugation. We propose a ceasefire, immediate negotiations, and a joint investigation into the monument incident with representatives from both our peoples. We will offer reparations for the monument's destruction. You will offer reparations for the 3,218 humans killed in your initial response. And together, we will find a path forward that doesn't require either species to abandon their dignity. You would offer this? After we came to destroy you?" High Chancellor, we didn't want this war. We tried every diplomatic avenue available. But now that you've seen what humanity is capable of, perhaps you can understand we don't want to be your enemies. We want to be your equals. The question is, can the Crithian Empire accept that? Vraxthor was silent for a long moment. He could order his fleet to continue fighting. They might even achieve victory eventually, though the cost would be catastrophic. Or he could do something the Crithian Empire had rarely done in its 6,000-year history. Admit that perhaps, just perhaps, they had been wrong. Stand down all weapons, he commanded his crew. Signal all battle groups to cease fire and hold position. He turned back to the holographic display. Ambassador Vasquez, the Crithian Empire accepts your offer of negotiations. But know this, we will not forget what happened here today. Elena smiled, and it was genuine. Neither will we, High Chancellor. Neither will we. That's the point. We'll both remember the day we chose peace over pride. 6 months later, Earth Coalition Assembly Hall, the newly constructed Galactic Assembly. Hall had been built in Geneva, on Earth, as a symbol of the new order. Representatives from the Crithian Empire, the United Earth Coalition, and 17 other species who had been watching the conflict sat in a circular chamber designed to ensure no species held a position of precedence over another. Ambassador. Elena Vasquez stood at the central podium, her hair now streaked with more gray than it had been a year ago. President Okafor sat in the Earth delegation section, and beside her, General Zhang Wei wore his full dress uniform adorned with the newly created Medal of Solar Defense dot in the Crithian section. High Chancellor Vraxthor sat with his own delegation, his crystalline exoskeleton bearing the intricate patterns that denoted a leader who had survived honorable combat. 6 months ago, Elena began, her voice carrying to every corner of the hall, 2 species stood on the brink of mutual annihilation. Today, we stand together to sign the Treaty of Solon Agreement that recognizes the sovereignty and dignity of all spacefaring species, that establishes protocols for preventing future misunderstandings, and that creates the framework for genuine cooperation among the stars. She paused, looking directly at Vraxthor. The Crithian Empire taught humanity an important lesson, that the galaxy is vast, ancient, and filled with civilizations whose history and culture deserve respect. And humanity, in turn, taught the Crithian Empire a lesson that youth is not weakness, that different approaches to technology and warfare can be equally valid, and that true strength lies not in domination, but in the courage to admit when dialogue might be wiser than destruction. Vraxthor stood, his movement causing ripples of surprise through the Crithian delegation. It was unprecedented for a High Chancellor to stand during another species' speech. Ambassador Vasquez speaks truth, he said, his translated voice resonating through the chamber. The Crithian Empire has existed for 6,000 of your years. In that time, we have encountered 147 spacefaring species. We have led, we have conquered, we have occasionally uplifted. But we have never until now been forced to truly see another species as our equals. His 6 eyes swept across the assembly. Humanity accomplished in 80 years what most species require millennia to achieve. They did not do so through superior technology or greater wisdom. They did so through adaptability, creativity, and an utterly unbreakable will to survive on their own terms. The Battle of Sol will be studied in Crithian military academies for generations, not as a defeat, but as a lesson in humility. Elena felt tears stinging her eyes. This was what they had fought for, not victory, but recognition. Not conquest, but respect. The Treaty of Sol represents more than peace between Earth and the Crithian Empire, she continued. It represents a new philosophy for galactic civilization, one where ancient species guide newer ones without dominating them, where younger species contribute fresh perspectives without dismissing accumulated wisdom. where conflicts are resolved through negotiation backed by mutual respect, not ultimatums backed by overwhelming force. She held up a data tablet containing the treaty's text. This document was written by representatives from both our peoples, working together over 6 months of intensive negotiations. It includes provisions for cultural exchange, technological cooperation, mutual defense pacts, and most importantly, a joint commission to ensure that tragedies like the destruction of the Monument of Eternal Ascension never happen again. One by one, the representatives approached to sign the treaty. Vraxther's crystalline appendage left a bioluminescent mark on the document. Elena signed with a traditional pen, its ink as black as the space between stars. When the last signature was placed, the assembly rose in applause, a human custom. That had been explained to the alien delegations and adopted for this historic moment. Later that evening, Geneva Observation Deck Elena stood alone on the observation deck, looking up at the stars. Earth's moon hung low on the horizon, and somewhere up there, among those pinpoints of light, humanity's colonies continued their work of building, growing, and reaching ever outward. She heard footsteps behind her and turned to see Captain James Okonkwo approaching, still in his dress uniform from the ceremony. "Aunt Elena," he said softly, coming to stand beside her. "I wanted to thank you." "Thank me?" "James, you're the one who crippled the Crithian flagship. You're the hero." James shook his head. "I did my job, but you gave us something to fight for. Not just survival, but the belief that we could turn enemies into allies, that we could find a better way." Elena put her arm around her nephew's shoulders. "We all did our part. The diplomats, the soldiers, the scientists who developed Project Terminus, the miners who died at Europa, the pilots who risked everything, we all contributed to this moment. Do you think it will last? The peace, I mean." "I think," Elena said slowly, "that we've proven something important to the galaxy. We've proven that humanity doesn't give up, doesn't surrender, and doesn't accept that the way things have always been is the way things must always be. That's a powerful message, James. It will ripple outward for generations." They stood in comfortable silence, watching the stars. Somewhere up there, Crithian ships and human vessels were conducting joint patrols of the Sol system, former enemies learning to trust one another. Somewhere up there, scientists from both species were sharing knowledge, building on each other's discoveries. Somewhere up there, the future was being written. "We offered peace," Elena murmured, repeating the words from her final transmission. "They chose war, and we showed them humanity's true power, not just the power to fight, but the power to forgive, the power to build bridges, even with those who came to burn them. That's what makes us human, James, not our weapons or our technology, but our absolute, stubborn, magnificent refusal to let hate have the final word." Above them, Earth continued its eternal dance through the cosmos, a blue jewel that had spawned a species crazy enough to believe they belonged among the stars, brave enough to defend that belief against impossible odds, and wise enough to offer peace even to those who had offered only war. Humanity had roared, and the galaxy had listened now. At last, the real work could begin, not the work of warriors, but the work of builders, dreamers, and those who believed that the universe was vast enough for everyone, if only they had the courage to share it. The stars shone overhead, no longer destinations to be feared or prizes to be conquered, but neighbors to be known, understood, and welcomed into the growing family of intelligent life that called the cosmos home. Earth's final transmission had been heard, and its message would echo through the ages. We are humanity. We will always choose peace, but we will never, ever choose submission. Asterisk.